he didn't really have, it didn't seem like any issues with you during the show at K-Rock. It seemed like he was pretty much clean and feeling good, even though maybe he wasn't clean, but he was doing his job coming in. But all the
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think. I think in retrospect he wasn't, obviously, but in terms of dealing with him, that I mean, he was a and I tried. I tried to communicate with Artie. I liked Artie a lot, and tried to communicate with Artie, you know, in some of his troubled times, and failed, you know. But Artie was a great guy. Or is a great guy, you know. The only thing I don't like about Artie is a big Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan, you know. But other than that, I can't think of anything we really disagreed on. And he was funny. He was quick. He was a big fan. You know, when he first came on, it was at one level. Then after he proved himself a success there, his agent and I had a fairly easy negotiation over, you know, on moving him up. I but I always remember being in Vegas one year for those shows, and Artie was so smashed while we're doing these shows that I was actually sitting, hiding on the stage, side of the stage, with my fingers through the back of his belt loop, so that he was sitting next to Fred, who had the control board. You know, that, I mean, Howard obviously always and still runs his own board, I think. And that every time Artie tried to get up, I would pull on his belt loop to not let him get up, so he couldn't tip over and you know, and probably fall into the into Fred's stuff. But yeah, Artie was great on the show. He added a different dynamic. Obviously, he wasn't writing like Jackie was writing, but you know, he was adding because he was a very spontaneous, funny guy who had a lot of great stories that just added to the show.
Yeah, and I mean, you weren't there, and it was a different time. But how do you think you would have handled how his ending happened?
I don't know. You know, I can't second guess anybody on that. It was, you know, we are who we are. You know, we do what we do to ourselves, and at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for that. You know, and to ourselves. So I'm sure the guys at the management team at Sirius, you know, I'm sure they did everything they could to, you know, to keep that situation viable.
And no contact with him lately? I know he's kind of coming back out of...
No. I mean, I'd be happy to, but I tried, and maybe he doesn't even know that I tried. I don't know. And maybe this message gets to him, and, you know, we could argue about who's better, the Mets or the Yankees, now that we've got a viable owner of the Mets in New York. We're excited.
Yeah, and, just give me some of those times back in the late 2008s, 2009s. Things are breaking down, and what was it like for you just to watch that happen? And how's he doing? If you know?
I mean, well, but first of all, I don't know how he's doing. I'm about 9 cell phone numbers behind on him, so I haven't talked to him in quite some time. I shoot him a DM here and there, but I haven't heard back. I hope he's good. I hope he's with his mom and his sister. The fact that he's not on social media, I think, is a very good sign. The fact that he's not anywhere really, I think, is a good sign. I think he's taking care of himself, what he needs to take care of, number one. As far as the Artie years, the end, I hated it. I hated every second of it because there was nobody more genuine. And I mean, he looked out for me when I got out there. I got out there in 05, 06, November of 06, he invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving, right? He didn't need to do that. He invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving. On the drive out there, he was just schooling me on radio and being a comic and how, like, hey, you're doing this Killers of Comedy tour and, you know, you're not going to make as much as you should because you're going to be doing a lot of the material with Levy. But there's guys who are going to be making more than you because they're on the air. And so you got to be okay with that. And you got to understand that. You got to make a decision how you're going to get on the air and how you're going to be perceived.
These times where Artie, I love Artie, I miss Artie, I ask everybody about Artie. But Scott, tell me about these times when you're watching him fall asleep or you're watching him fight Teddy or Sal, and I mean, did you have sense that there was issues with him, or did you feel weird about showing this, or was it, hey, it's a big party, Artie's laughing at it, it's fun?
I literally had no idea he was doing drugs until after he would say it each time. Then I'd be like, oh, but then the next time I would give him the benefit of the doubt. And again, he must just be tired because he was up all night long. I don't know. But, there became a time when the eyes start rolling into the back of his head sort of stuff. And the eyes, the lids are like half open. And, I had a camera on him. I felt like I had to do my job and capture it, but I felt guilty for it. And the extent that it was funny and he played along, like putting the bed out there so he could take a nap during the interview. Who was being interviewed when he's sleeping there? She's talking about her
was it Avril Lavigne or?
She's talking about an award she won or something, and here's Artie just snoring on the bed. It was so funny, but so the extent we can make fun of it, it was great, but ultimately it was sad. And Artie was a good friend and generally the funniest person that worked in that whole 20 years of the show. And I just hope he figures it out, You
don't keep in touch with him, right?
He changes his phone number all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll call him once a year, maybe, when I find a new phone number, and we'll talk for a little while, and then he disappears again. So
I think we talked about it last time, but I'm just curious, how much you had to deal with him. Was it more Howard coming to you and saying, deal with him? Because there was a lot of issues there in the last 3 or 4 years he was there. How often did you have to kind of personally go to him and say, listen, man, let's get this together. What can we do to help? How many times did that come up for you?
Every day. I mean, Howard and I would meet with him on occasion, but I had to deal with it. And because we were a family and so close, that we felt the bumps in the road. And I didn't understand what he was going through until, we got really into it. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was really heartbreaking to see one of your fellow comrades and, friend and a guy with such a big heart and soul as Artie had to watch somebody to go through that. It's just terrifying. And I didn't understand it. I'm not a therapist, whatever, but I was a friend of his, and to see him to go through what he went through. And then when he stabbed himself after I cut him loose from the team, and it was horrifying. I still have shivers up and down my spine even thinking about it. But that's how heavy and how close it was, and what it meant. And the podcast that I was on with Artie that time, it was just so good to see him. It was the healthiest I've seen him in a long time. And it made me feel good that, hopefully he turned the corner, but all you can do is pray. So, and hope for the best with guys like that.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on, but I have a question about just what was that day like where you did have to tell him? How did that happen? Can you kind of take me through? I know he was on the show, and the next day, it was a Thursday, he wasn't, so it was clearly that day, right? Just give me how that happened, just the details, because it's interesting, I think, to everyone to hear, someone you've heard every day and made you laugh and you're hoping is good, now he's not there.
I talked to him after the show, and I walked him out of the building, and I just, gave him a hug and asked him to get help. And he did go to rehab for, I think, 24 hours. And then he got out of rehab and he went home and stabbed himself 7 times. And I remember sitting next in the hospital bed with his mom and his sister and Robin, and Artie was just coming out of whatever he was coming off of. And he looked at me and I'll never forget that look. It was so chilling. It was like, if he could get out of that bed, he would strangle me. That's how and he couldn't talk. He felt pathetic. I could see, just the pain in him. And it was a very heavy moment. And I'd rather not think about it.
No. Okay, I'm not going to continue. Have you talked to him, though? Have you heard from him since the last time we talked? Is it?
No, I reach out to his manager every once in a while to see how he's doing, but he's kind of laying low.
You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. If you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I just I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here, probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But when did you get a hold of Artie? Because last time we hadn't talked to him. So how did you get a hold of him, and how was he looking? And give us an update.
He was out of. He got out of the hospital, and I think Ian went to his apartment. I'm not sure, and it wasn't long after that he had some more trouble. And then, as far as I know, right now, he's doing fine. I know for a few seconds he did a podcast with somebody, and then I think he was talking about maybe taking a gig. But then the whole pandemic completely obscured everything, because even if somebody wanted to work or was ready to work, they couldn't work. So everything is obscured. So who knows? I just knock on wood. I hope the guy's doing good, because I love him. He was good to me. He did the foreword to my book. Now he's been in my documentary, and whatever. I wish the best for him. And, he teeters, addiction's a rough thing. I got 20 in a month. I'm going to be 20 years sober, and I could reach for a beer tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's it's a very tentative thing. So,
just give me a thought on Artie, and if I don't know if you talked to him. I guess not.
No, I don't even know where Artie is right now, and I know a lot of people don't know. He's sort of just disappeared. I hope he's okay. I haven't talked to him in probably a year and a half now. So that's a real worry and concern. I just hope he's all right. But great guy, obviously fighting demons, and just a lot of trouble in his life. But I just hope whatever he's going through right now, wherever he is, I just hope he comes out on the other side really good.
Yeah, and hopefully his nose is okay. I saw the last clip of him, and he was so good. He was really nice to me when he came through town, so I root for him. Really candid, since you've left the show, about just sort of talking about your experiences there, but we don't hear a lot from a lot of people when they leave. They don't, and I've noticed this just by doing this podcast. People have enjoyed hearing from a lot of people, Doug Goodstein, Tim Sabian, but there's a full list of people that are just not wanting to talk about their experiences. What is that? What do you think that is? People like Scott can't. Scott the engineer has an NDA, and there's probably a few others that we don't know, and maybe that's why. But why do you think some folks are just not wanting to talk about any of the experiences they had there once they leave?
I don't know. I think for me personally, I decided that I'm a comic, right? I don't like when people tell me what I can and can't say. I don't. I had a comic once who was booking a show in Vegas, didn't want to put me up because I was wearing jeans, and I'm like, shit like that bothers me, right? So when it got to the point for me where they were like, hey, you can do your side shit, you lose half your salary, you lose your benefits, but you can do your side shit, but the last 15 years, Sirius, the show, Howard, you can't talk about any of that. And so for me, I was like, well, okay, look, I'm not looking to shit on the guy. I have nothing bad to say about him. But 15 years of my life is 15 years of my life. And I should be able to share a story about running into Norm Macdonald in the hallway and him asking me to go to lunch. And then I worked Caroline's with him, or, whatever the fuck it may be. Saying hi to Spades, anything. My Gene Simmons story that I told in the first episode, right? That happened on the sidewalk right outside Sirius. Am I violating this agreement by telling these stories? Because that was my issue, and that was my thing where I'm like, look, can I just get something in writing? Can I just get something in writing that says Here's what you don't want me to talk about, and I'll sign it. And management was like, well, you know, this is kind of the way it is. And so I said, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it all on the table. I'm gonna walk away. And now you can't tell me anything. And it was a risk, and it was a gamble, and it was a lot of money, but peace of mind, being able to sit here and talk to you or just on my show and answer questions, that to me is worth a lot more. And the payout from it, what I'm seeing from people, the responses, and almost everybody, whether they liked me on the show or hated me, they love the honesty. They love the fact that I'm sharing, that I'm not shying away from shit, but I'm also not shitting on anybody. It can be done. It is possible. And so I've always wanted to do things on my terms with that show. I love Richard and Sal, but I'm never going to paint my dick as a KISS member to get airtime. And so for me, that was a big thing. Like, I'm going to get on the air my way. And I was going to leave my way. I wasn't going to join the bitter crew. I wasn't going to join the haters. You know, are there shit that pissed me off there? Absolutely. I worked at a place for 15 years. Anywhere you work for 15 years, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have people that rub you the wrong way. But do I want to write a book about it? Do I want to do a podcast every week talking shit about this? That kind of negative energy is just, it's just an anchor, buddy. It's you're never going to progress. You're never going to, I want to grow as an artist. I want to grow as a broadcaster. I'm not going to do that talking about the show every day. So yeah, for me, I don't have bad shit to say about the guy. I'm glad that I'm able to talk. I'm glad that that's the thing that people are hanging on to and digging about the show, is that I'm able to talk. And I'm digging the fact that people are saying, hey, I'm glad you didn't shit on it. I'm glad you didn't do this or that, because I am too.
No, it's good. And like I said, I've been following you for years. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do there. I know you've got an interview today with someone I'm interested to listen to, so I look forward to that.
Yeah.
We'll let you talk about that. Just a couple more minutes here, but I think when people leave the show, I guess the fact that it's never mentioned on the show just lets people's imaginations run wild, and so that's what happened with you. Also happened with Brent, who's been a part of this. And you just read all these conspiracy theories. But what was it like when Brent left? And you guys were pretty tight by the end, right? But what was it like when he left? Because it was one of those, he was there, he was doing stories, he was on the air a lot, and then he was gone. What was it like for you? And just tell me a little bit about your relationship with him, because he's a fun guy, and he was funny here.
Yeah, I like Brent. Brent's a good dude. He's a hustler. When he left, it was weird. I now didn't have an office mate to cut his fingernails next to me while sitting at his fucking desk like an animal, where I'd have to dodge ricocheting nail clippings off a goddamn wall. I miss that. I missed him with headphones on, just humming like a mental patient, but there was no music. He was just humming to him. It's almost like a full orgasm all day long. It was tough. It was tough to not have that anymore. Seeing his hotness around the office was nice too. I mean, 7 is being modest. That dude's more like a 17. And his honesty, I miss the most. The guy never lied to me about anything. And I always respected his honesty. Brent's a good dude, man. He can take it to a point, and I always love pushing him past that point. And then he would calm down later, because when it's all said and done, he loves radio. And so one person would come to him in the office, because we'd go back. You got to understand, we'd fucking go at it on the air, and then we shared an office. So we go back to this office, and his back's to me, and my back's to him, and it's quiet. And one person would just come in and go, "Great shit, guys." And then it would be like, for him, it'd be like, "Oh, thanks, man. Thanks." And then he'd turn around and he'd be like, "Yeah, that was pretty good, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that was good." Until the next time I pissed him off, and he would look at me like he wanted to wear my skin.
Was it weird when he left, though? Or, I mean, was that surprising to you? I don't know if you guys talked about it, but was it just like an odd thing? Because, again, people were like, where'd he go? Why is he gone? And he pretty much mentioned, he was like, I needed to get to Florida. I was scared of COVID. I wanted to get the hell out. It's kind of like your story-ish.
Yeah, I mean, they were in an apartment. You know, he had a fucking German Shepherd in an apartment with him. Like, that's like having another apartment in your apartment with you, in New York, or they were in Jersey City. Yeah, I get it, dude. Like, I don't fault the guy. I don't fault anyone, whether you're at a show, at Home Depot, at fucking Circle K. If you get to the point one day where you're like, I got to get out of here, go. Listen to your gut. Follow your instinct, man. I'm very happy for him. I was happy for him because I know he was stressed. I know he was stressed about, you know, COVID and where they were at and work and that kind of stress, man. That's how you get sick. That's how you get COVID. That's when your immune system gets shut down, is when you are stressing and worrying about everything. So I was very happy to hear him go and that he was happy and relieved, and he started doing his own thing. The guy's fucking grinding. He's getting there. Him and Kalen, they're hustling, they're working, and respect to them, man.
Couple more minutes. I always ask my Howard Stern guests about Artie Lange. Tell me about those days when it was getting weird, and did you get a chance to talk to him in those days, try to help him? And I know you guys, I don't even know if you went on a couple tours with him maybe. And what's he up to now? Do you get a chance to talk to Artie? I know it's no one does, but I always have to ask because I would like to know how he's doing. And just give me some of those times back in the late 2008s, 2009s. Things are breaking down, and what was it like for you just to watch that happen? And how's he doing? If you know.
I mean, well, but first of all, I don't know how he's doing. I'm about 9 cell phone numbers behind on him, so I haven't talked to him in quite some time. I shoot him a DM here and there, but I haven't heard back. I hope he's good. I hope he's with his mom and his sister. The fact that he's not on social media, I think, is a very good sign. The fact that he's not anywhere really, I think, is a good sign. I think he's taking care of himself, what he needs to take care of, number one. As far as the Artie years, the end, I hated it. I hated every second of it because there was nobody more genuine. And I mean, he looked out for me when I got out there. I got out there in 05, 06, November of 06. He invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving, right? He didn't need to do that. He invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving. On the drive out there, he was just schooling me on radio and being a comic and how, like, hey, you're doing this Killers of Comedy tour and, you know, you're not going to make as much as you should because you're going to be doing a lot of the material with Levy. But there's guys who are going to be making more than you because they're on the air. And so you got to be okay with that. And you got to understand that. You got to make a decision how you're going to get on the air and how you're going to be perceived. And that was a big thing for me, you know, as far as like, he wasn't necessarily knocking anybody, but he was just like preparing me for the mind fuck of like, you know, Richard and Sal are going to do, you know, well, not Sal would do about 15 minutes. And Sal, I always say, can do stand up anywhere. Richard was doing stand up because he could, because there was a market for it. But Richard would go up there and do 7-8 minutes at best. And Richard made, I mean, for somebody doing 8 minutes, Richard made great money. And there were times on the road where I made less than him, but I was doing 30, 35 minutes and Levy was closing out the show doing the same. We were bookending it. I was hosting it. So that's what he was preparing me for. And then he let me into his mom's home and we sat there and had dinner with his family. And on the way back, we went and saw the James Bond movie and got stoned, you know, smoked a bowl in his car and fucking went. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, I'm still a super fan. And I'm like, I'm in Artie's Mercedes smoking a bowl with him going to see, you know, James Bond. Those were my favorite memories. Such a great storyteller, such a great ball buster, and just a really sweet guy. And working with him on the road was both great and depressing. You know, to see him not be able to enjoy it was a bummer. as for me as a comic, you know, this is a level I'm shooting for, right? I want to be playing theaters like this guy. I want to be, but you know, I would sit there and go, well, fuck, is this what comes with it, right? You just lock yourself in the green room with headphones on, and you don't talk to anybody. I got in to stand up to work with my friends, not to be in a different green room, but it wasn't Artie, right? And so you had your suspicions, you had your hunches, but you know, nobody ever saw him do it. But yeah, I love the guy, and if there's anybody I will root for 10 out of 10 times, no matter what, it's that dude. I wish him all the best, and I hope we hear from him soon. I would kill to have him on my podcast. Love to talk to him.
You and me both. Let's do it. We'll do a tag team interview. What?
Oh, if he goes on your shit before mine, I'm fucking blowing my brains out. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm gonna work on it.
If I see him with and you and that fucking hair, I'm gonna jump out a goddamn window.
Well, now I'm going to work very hard. So yeah, I had a number for him as well.